Good afternoon. Glad to be here on the South Austin campus. And I want to say, first of all, thank you, Tim Kelly and your crew for making all this possible. And I was talking to Linda. Welcome back, Linda, from India, where she learned how to deliver in a calm manner digital fluency. So good to have you here. So we're going to go through a few PowerPoint slides and then get into some discussion about, as you know, we're in the process of a new ERP SIS system, Student Information System. And so when we get near the end, Brother Neil over here, who's trying to hide in the hallway, and now you know why I call him Naughty Neil, is going to talk more details and in depth about what that SIS conversion is going to look like as we move forward with Jason Marshall. Also, if you haven't met Jason, how many of you have met Jason? He is our I have. He is our Vice Chancellor for Information Technology, and so he'll be a part of that. And so in our newest Vice Chancellor for Human Resources, if you haven't met her, is Kelly Tarico. And then so for the first part, Dr. Humphrey and I are going to walk through a few slides with you and give you some updates on what's going on at the college. And then unfortunately, we're going to have to rush out. We have something else that we've got to be at back at Highland. So we will leave you in good hands. So let me start with this and just say this is basically what we're going to cover today. We're going to go over the 2022 bond issue, which you know was a successful election. Then we'll get into the bond projects by region, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. But just to give you kind of an overview so that you know where we're going to be spending the money over the next 5 to 10 years. And then what we call the Chancellor's priorities. And that is, we have a strategic plan for the institution that's the overarching umbrella. Underneath that, we have the academic master plan that was developed about two years ago. We've got a facilities master plan that was also developed 2 years ago. We have a technology master plan that is probably 3 years ago. So those feed up. And so what we do with the Chancellor's priorities is we say, what do we need to accomplish in 1 year in order to make progress towards those other 3 master plans and where we're headed. So we'll get into that. Dr. Humphrey's going to spend some time on that one, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So I'll move fast so that while I'm here, we can have some Q&A before I take off. So 2022 bond issue was passed by 70%. We've broken it up into, as you know, we're looking at regions. So a north, central, and south region of our service area. And just as a reminder, our service area is the size of the state of Connecticut. We work with 26 different school districts within that service area. But within the service area is a taxing district also. So we only locate campuses within the taxing district. And I'll show you a slide of that. So 70% for, 30% against. So if you recall, back in 2014, we also went to the voters with a GO bond election. And that one was about $386 million. Now, does anybody remember what the passage rate was on the 2014 bond issue? No. 59. No.
56 or 57?
Yeah, 57% pass rate. So to go from 57% with 386 million, now we go back to the voters with 770 million, and it passes with 70%. So when I talk to my peers around the state and in other states where they actually have the opportunity to issue general obligation bonds and have an election, 70% is unheard of. It never passes with that kind of a margin. So I say that to say that wouldn't happen if people didn't have trust in what ACC delivers. Trust doesn't happen without you. And so your outflow into the community and bringing people into ACC is what creates that trust, that environment that people want to invest in. Because that's when they vote to tax themselves, they're voting to invest. And they're investing in education, they're investing in ACC. So I just want to say thank you for making that possible. That happens because of you. So the amount of money, where it's going to be spent, so in the North region, and I showed you which campuses were included in the North region, of the 770, 200 million will go into the North service area. Central area will be 180 million. And one of the reasons why that is so is because in the 2014 bond, we spent quite a bit of money in the central region. Where we haven't spent a lot of money is in the South region, south area that we service. And that is a strong growth area. It continues to grow down towards San Marcos and into San Marcos. And so we've got to put more money into that. And when we talk about when we divide it into the three sectors, we're talking about what types of programs. So within the campus plans, the facility plans, the academic master plan, it talks about what programs should go where. And as an example, nursing. High cost program, but high need. And high wages, high income for our graduates. So we want to have a presence in the North, Central, and South. We don't have a South presence for nursing. So that will go to the Hayes campus as a new building. Dental hygiene is the same way. You know, basically it's just at, right now we just have one site, I think. So we have to have a North, Central, South presence. And welding, automotive technology, all of those types of programs, especially when we're talking about high dollar cost programs in career and technology education, where people get good jobs, good paying jobs. We've got to make it affordable and accessible. So just looking at the South region, and I'll kind of focus on that, is from the 2014 bond issue, we purchased land close to the airport and close to 130. And that is a career and technical education campus for the future called Southeast Travis County. So that is where it's all raw land right now. So we've got to build the infrastructure and then the campus itself. So that will be going very quickly. I talked about health sciences, nursing, and that is at the Hayes campus. And so that'll be moving quickly. Pinnacle is considered land banked. You know, we had a site, we had a 10-story building there, but we had to vacate that for health and safety reasons. And so, but that 35 acres approximately that we've got at the Pinnacle campus, we will be building out a campus on that site. And then you got Riverside and South Austin. South Austin, we are landlocked. We cannot expand here. We are what we are here. And so one of the things I'm really proud of, and Tim was taking me on a walkthrough of a couple of areas, is taking a look at the close collaboration with AISD, with Early College High School, and getting more high school students up and ready. I gave a talk this morning to, what's it called? Metropolitan Breakfast Club. I had to get up had to be there at 7 o'clock this morning to give a talk. And, you know, as I talked about, you know, the great thing about talking to groups like that is I get to brag about everything that y'all do. And so I had that opportunity this morning. And one of the ladies raised her hand and she said, you know, I've got kids that are ready for early college, high school, and dual credit. You guys need to put that on a big billboard because too many people still don't know about dual credit, early college, high schools. And she said, boy, that is something you got to brag about. And we've got somewhere close to 8,000 students, I think, right now taking dual credit, either just dual credit or through early college, high schools, or through P-TECHs or career academies. So I'm really proud of what's happening here to support that. And I'll skip the other two because we're in the South. Other district-wide projects. So in addition to what we passed in November, the $770 million, is about a year ago this time, we also sold what's called tax maintenance notes or tax maintenance bonds that can only be used for existing facilities. So some of that money is also going into the South Campus because it cannot be used for new construction, whereas the GEO bonds can be used for new construction as well as renovation. So looking at what types of things have to happen, it is renovations, it's life and safety type activities, it's accessibility, making sure that we are in conformity with all code and making it accessible and user-friendly to all of our students, our faculty, and our staff. So the next steps, as a result, we're in the process of going out to hire some architects for the various projects throughout the district. Once we hire the architects, we'll be going back out for construction manager at risk so we can get going with the construction on those sites. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Humphrey to talk about the Chancellor's priorities. One of the other things you may or may not have heard, but we got $5 million in a gift from University Federal Credit Union. It's the largest gift we've ever received at the college. We are building on the Highland campus. We have, if you know the history of that campus, it was owned by the St. John's Baptist Association, African American church, and they have owned it from the 1800s until some developers bought it to build Highland Mall. And there's some negative aspects to how that transition actually happened. If you haven't had a chance, you need to go over to the Highland Mall and look at the history wall and look at the history of that site itself. It was used for camp meetings that people from around the state and to a certain extent around the country used to come in for educational sessions, spiritual sessions, for spiritual development, educational development. We wanted to honor that history, and so it is called St. John's Encampment Commons, and that's the big park. The park has just been pretty much completed. We still have a fence around it until we have the grand opening, but UFCU is paying for $5 million that actually is all going to go into scholarships and career scholars. So it'll go directly to students, that $5 million. And we're building a pavilion that will be named the UFCU Pavilion at St. John's Encampment Commons. We'll break ground shortly. March 27th. Put it on your calendar. And hopefully that pavilion will be ready before I leave, which will be in August. So stay tuned for a date on that, specific on that. Before I turn it over, do you have any questions of me? Or anything I've shared? One other thing, okay. So you know the legislative session is ongoing. During the interim, there was a committee, a select committee, chaired by a business man from El Paso, Texas, Woody Hunt. And it was a great group. It included some community college presidents, trustees, and business and industry people, as well as legislators. That group concluded their recommendations in October and passed those forward. So those now are incorporated in a bill that will, and it's a low number bill, which is good because it means it'll be looked at sooner rather than later. If you were to ask me, it has a 95% chance of passing as was submitted because it was developed with almost everybody that's interested being a part of the recommendation, including the legislature. So, and it is bipartisan. So I expect 95% that it will pass. One of the things that we see with our students, they have struggled mightily with housing insecurity, with food insecurity, with childcare insecurity, transportation insecurity. We were blessed during the past 3 years to get a lot of money from the federal government in HERF funds, 3 different tranches, that over $100 million went directly into students to help them stay on track with education at ACC. And it wasn't to pay their tuition and fees and books, it was really to help them with living expenses to make it through. That ends this semester. So what my hope is if we can get this bill passed through the legislature, there's what's called Texas Educational Opportunity Grant. That grant has funded 26% of those students who are eligible because there's not enough money in the fund to fund all the students who apply. Within the bill will be to bring it up to parity with what they give to universities for Texas opportunity grants, and that is so that 70% of the students who apply for a EOG grant will have access to that. That will be a major issue. The other thing that is recommended is that the funding, rather than being based on enrollment data, it'll be based on success metrics, student success metrics. So they'll be looking at persistence rates, graduations, transfers, and different metrics like that, and that's what our funding will be based on for the most part. So now any questions? The recommendation is for community colleges in the state to get an additional $650 million. Of course, seems like a drop in the bucket when you talk about, what they're talking about in the legislature is that the additional revenue that the legislators have to work with this year is right now $32 billion and probably going to be higher before the session ends. So, but we feel good about community colleges getting a good share, $650 million. So now I will turn it over to Dr. Humphrey.
Can you all hear me now? All right. Well, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege because he gave me the clicker and say that I had the joy, the privilege of attending the breakfast this morning with Dr. Rhodes. And if you all have never seen him speak outside of the college, you've missed a treat. I can't say enough about how amazing he is as an ambassador for this district. Everyone was just eating all of his words up, and even as they were trying to talk about his legacy and his greatness as a leader, he continually deflected and was bragging on everybody in this room and across the district because that's a reflection of the type of leader that he is. And so I was just thinking, I know that he has announced a date that we're not going to deal with in August. But that does give us the opportunity to celebrate him for 6 months. So if you would join me in a round of applause for our wonderful chancellor, I think he deserves a standing applause. He's still here. Well, let me make that clear. But I don't think we can say thank you enough for the amount of time that he's dedicated, the commitment and passion that he's shown for our institution. And we're all better as a result. And so he's asked me to share a couple of things about the Chancellor's priorities. And if you've been in different forums, we've talked about the Chancellor's priorities quite a bit. But if you haven't, just to give you an overarching view, Dr. Rhodes mentioned the strategic plan. You all have heard from General Assembly about the launch of our new strategic plan. But when the Chancellor worked with the Cabinet last year to formulate these 6 themes, it's a way for us, it's a framework for us to organize the work across the college. And so when we think about all that we're doing to ensure that we meet the objectives in the Academic Master Plan, which if you didn't get a chance, we wrote an article about that in the League for Innovation on the process for developing the Academic Master Plan, the type of collaborative leadership that was shown. That was the model for inclusive leadership. Dr. Rhodes talks all the time about innovation and collaboration. Innovation plus collaboration equals transformation. Well, we are working really hard, in a spirit of continuous process improvement to ensure that we get all of the voices in at the critical time so everyone can have an input into the work that we do. And so hopefully you'll see the work that you do every day reflected in these 6 themes. These themes are not new to Austin Community College, but it's just to help everyone see the work that we do in different buckets. Again, it's how we achieve our overall goals. If you think about your strategy, I've explained it this way. If you decide to go on a road trip, you can have an atlas, but if you don't know where you're going, that atlas isn't going to help you much, right? You have to know where you're going. So with the Academic Master Plan, the Facilities Master Plan, and all the other master plans that we have, those things are our strategy in saying, we declare as a district, these are the things that are important for us. And so with that, we have to have a roadmap. So think of the Chancellor's priorities as our GPS to say, this is how we'll get there. And so that's what we're doing with these priorities. These are themes. And so there's a lot of work that goes under each one of these themes. And so with that, I'll start and give you a high-level overview. So equity. If you go back to our college's mission, vision, and value statements, equity is embedded into everything that we do. We look at things through a lens of equity. When you look at the original charge for the college, we were established to provide democratic access to high-quality education. So we have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility, to ensure that our pathways for our students are high quality, high fidelity, and that we're providing optimized, personalized learning. You go back to our Academic Master Plan. That was one of the core tenets, personalized learning. You see personalized learning with our accelerators. You see personalized learning in our classrooms. You see personalized learning everywhere. That's what equity is, ensuring that we meet the needs of each student. Also, when we think about that, it also means, we talk about fiduciary responsibility. Dr. Rhodes just talked about us passing a $770 million bond. Think about how significant that is. That means our community trusts us. They would not have passed that bond, and that's an overwhelming when you look at the political elements of it. Our community overwhelmingly believes in us to deliver and meet the needs for our residents. When you think about the neighbors that live close to you, there are people that may not have achieved their academic and career goals. We want to make sure that everyone who desires to sets a goal for academic or career goals, that they're able to achieve that here with us. And so we want to ensure that as we continue to work and build and focus on excellence in teaching and learning, and excellence with our facilities, excellence with our technologies, that we are creating that foundation where every student that walks through our doors can thrive. Enrollment. Why is that important? I just talked about us having a responsibility to each citizen. We want to ensure that we are removing as many barriers as possible. If we have a student that has a desire to achieve a certain academic pathway, but they're having financial challenges or they're not quite sure, they don't have the confidence. We want to make sure that as they attempt to achieve that we are removing as many barriers as possible to help them make that a reality. We know that the outcome of that is each student that comes through our doors that's successful. Not only are you employees of ACC, you're residents of Central Texas. We all want Austin not just to remain weird. And that has a caveat because it can't be weird if our artists and creatives can't afford to live here. So let's start with that piece. But if we have each student, each person, each citizen in our community that wants to pursue an academic or career goal, and they're able to come here with us and achieve that, we have a more robust Central Texas. If you have an aging parent or a spouse, some of us are more seasoned, that might be in the AARP desired outreach efforts, we need to ensure that we have the healthcare professionals that are able to take care of them, or else we're going to have some major workforce stoppages real soon. We're almost at a crisis as a nation because of when you look at the pipeline of healthcare talent. What does that mean? Well, thank gosh we have some of the best allied health professionals in the nation. I was bragging to some people earlier today on a call about our 98% NCLEX pass rate. That is unheard of. They were working with hospitals that have designed their own curriculum. They're lucky if they get a 70% pass rate. So I don't think we pat ourselves on the back, congratulate our deans and faculty members enough, but what we're doing is amazing work. Again, we want to make sure that from an enrollment perspective, that we are creating the environment. I talked about the fact that we're a learning institution. What that means is we're not afraid to look at ourselves, apply the spirit of continuous process improvement to say, can we do this better? As we look at our enrollment funnel, we're looking and saying, you know what, there are some things that we can tweak to make this better. We've engaged with a consulting firm to help us. They have worked with some of our peer institutions across the nation. They've worked with some of the Aspen winners. And based on that, they've provided some recommendations for us. We have started incorporating those. And if you've been paying attention to the daily enrollment bulletin, you'll see that our enrollment is up, and that's a direct result of all of the hard work that's going on across the district. Why does that matter? Again, as we remove some of the barriers to enrollment, that allows more of our citizens across Central Texas to be able to pursue their dreams with us. Learning and retention, that's why we're here, right? So when we think about how we serve our students, making sure that we're creating an optimal learning environment for each one of our students, we want to make sure that we are equipping our faculty and our staff with the technologies that they need, with the support systems that they need, so that they can provide those personalized approaches for each one of our students. We know that when students have what they need, they can thrive. One of the things that we've talked about is, I'll say, expanding our definition of diversity to include neurodiversity. For those of you that are not familiar with that term, neurodiversity just speaks to, we have different ways in which people learn. You have neurotraditional, neurodiverse, but what we know is it's documented that 20% of the incoming freshmen nationally are neurodiverse. What has happened historically is higher ed has not been a welcoming place for neurodiverse populations. And so if you think about it, we know the research with our first-gen college students, when they're not successful, they tend to blame themselves. What we want is to make sure that we're the place where not just neurodiverse students can thrive, but all students can thrive. And as we learn more about what it takes to create that inclusive environment, all of our students benefit. The great place is Austin Community College is leading the charge from a neurodiversity perspective. We're all already in the process of achieving the neurodiverse workplace, and that's led by Stephen Christopher's group. Did I see Stephen today? No. His group has been leading that application process, but that speaks volumes about us as an institution and how we continually apply that continuous process improvement lens to see how we can serve not just our students, but show up for each other. When you think about teaching and learning and excellence in teaching and learning, we believe in it so much we have a T-led division, right? So the important thing is we cannot afford to rest on our laurels. Yes, we've been recognized for the amazing things that we've done, but we cannot afford to get complacent. If you think back on our General Assembly when we had Gerd Linhart and he talked about change, he shared with us that we will face more change in the next 10 years than we faced in the last 100. And another word for that is perma-change. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so for us, that's a particular challenge when you've been a leader in teaching and learning. That doesn't mean that we continue to offer things the same way we did in 1973 when the college opened. We have to ensure that our students meet their student learning objectives. But how we do it will have to change and adapt. We have to adapt. We have to increase our AQ, not our IQ or EQ, but our AQ, our adaptability quotient, to make sure that we're able to serve our students and that we continue to be the best from a teaching and learning perspective. Included with that, from a support perspective, we have strike teams, and those are the individual team members that are leading particular projects. We have a strike team for strategic scheduling. So what they're doing is putting in the framework, looking at our existing processes, and trying to apply the tools that will allow our deans, department chairs, and faculty members to schedule in a more efficient way. One that's less tedious, one that is based on student demand, and allows us to have the flexibility, again, getting back to serving those students, to provide the courses at the times they need, in the modalities that they're requesting, so that we can continue to be the college of choice. Another one of those is HyFlex classes. You are familiar, I'm sure, with the work of our GIS team. There was an article about them in the League for Innovation and their groundbreaking work with HyFlex. So we've had we've had a cohort in the summer and a cohort in the fall of faculty members who are adjusting the delivery of their courses to deliver in a HyFlex modality. And we have our continual work with the QEP. We have Dean Smarzek in the room, who so eloquently led this work with our SACS reaccreditation. So we're really blessed to be able to have a QEP that was adopted, recommended by our faculty, widely adopted, and led by such great leadership, that is making sure, again, from our students' perspective, that they have the digital fluency to compete in today's world. One of the things that Dr. Rhodes shared this morning is our students have documented outcomes that when they leave ACC, they have 40 to 50% higher income as a result. That's major. Students are not coming to us for giggles, right? They're coming to us because they want a better quality of life. When they're able to achieve that degree or certificate, and if they're going straight to the workforce or if they're transferring, we want to ensure that they're achieving the goals that they set. And so when they're able to have these digital fluency skills, that's a key part. When you look at the World Economic Forum and the skills that they said are necessary for today's students, our college is doing the work to ensure that our students have the tools that they need to do that. In a time where you've heard ChatGPT at least 5 times a day, it's really important that our students know how to operate in a world where that is becoming the norm. Really proud to say there was an article in the Statesman today with our own Dr. Galen Scott talking about how we are approaching teaching and learning, understanding that ChatGPT is the new norm. There will be a workshop at the League for Innovation where we're talking about that, and I'll share with the colleges how we're leading this approach. We have some early adopters here at the college that started using PackBack a year ago. So we continue to be innovators and leaders in the innovation space. Wellness. So when you think about this, I don't want you to think about spas and yoga classes. I want you to think about, all those are necessary, but we're talking about how we show up for each other, not just how we show up for our students. I think there's been a lot of talk, and you've heard about being a student-ready college. Yes, we will continue to do that and continue. I've talked about all the things that we're doing to make sure that we're creating the optimal environment for our students. this is really about how we show up for each other too. We'll continue to do all the work around all the things Dr. Rhodes said, transportation challenges, food insecurity, housing insecurity. We know that our students need support. We'll continue to do that and pour quite a few resources and make sure that our talent is aligned. But this is also dealing with our 3Cs work. I'm so proud to say I'll be back here tomorrow for our 3Cs award. And so that's a chance where we get to honor the people that are walking that out in integrity. You know, it's important for us that the 3Cs are not just a poster. I know we've got posters up and people tend to stick their value statements up on a wall. The power is not on a poster. The power is when that is so ingrained in your culture that other people talk about how you reflect that. And so we're really honored to be able to honor our 3C stars tomorrow. And so we'll continue to talk about how we show up for each other with integrity. For all of our math fans, what is an integer? Anybody? Any other nerds out here with me? An integer is a whole number. When we operate with integrity, that means we're operating as a whole person. We're not expecting you to show up compartmentalized. I'm going to bring my professionalism to work, but I'm going to leave my family at home. You don't work like that as a human. So when we talk about the 3Cs, it's how we show up for each other with the caring, collaboration, and connection. And as we talk about innovation, one of the things is you cannot have innovation without trust. And one of my favorite sayings on trust is hard to establish, but easy to destroy. So we really have to work on how we show up for each other, how we build trust, how we establish trust, and how we maintain trust with each other. That's how we show up for each other. Modernization. We have two of our experts here. You all saw the announcement with Mr. Mike Midgley. I saw him. He's here. Wave, Mike. He can give his Queen's wave. As our leader for our SIS modernization effort, and he and Neil will be here to answer additional questions. But that's a key piece. You all have seen, you know firsthand about our work to transition to Workday, and so our next phase is transitioning to our SIS module. So that's going to require quite a heavy lift from everyone at the college, and we're here to make sure that we do this successfully and with fidelity. Sustainability and effectiveness was the last theme. Again, you all have heard about the kudos around our SACS reaccreditation visit. We came out of that due to the hard work of everyone every day with no recommendations. That's huge. So that was a key part. Our legislative priorities, which Dr. Rhodes already spoke about, and the GO bonds. So all of those things are necessary to ensure that we're able to continue to operate with fidelity. All right.
There's a big VIP event that's going to be going on later today, and these two are hosting a very, very, very important person. That's all I can say. I probably said too much, but they do need to leave in about 5 minutes. With that, I want to open it up to the floor. Any questions on what you have seen?
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Thank you so much. Dr. Humphreys, I know that equity remains a very important to our institution, but on the state political side, there's been some recent attacks to diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. I'm just wondering what our stand is and how we see that impacting us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Rhodes spoke eloquently about that this morning.
Yeah. You know, this is a hard time because politically we are so at odds, left to right, and so this is a tough time for everybody in education, period. But we have invested, we believe deeply in our souls that DEI diversity, equity, and inclusion is it's a part of our DNA. So how do you don't walk away from it. So my hope is that it will not get legs, and that those two bills will not make it. That's my hope. I'm optimistic that cooler heads will prevail as we move through this.
My name is Tim Kelly. I'm the campus manager here at South Austin. Welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you. First of all, I wanted to mention that we're proud to have the QEP program housed at South Austin and doing their hard work on the second floor. It's a great team up there. We're proud to have them here. One thing that I'm curious about, and I know there aren't any hard timelines on, I think the construction of Pinnacle Campus is probably going to affect South Austin the most directly. Is that 5 years, 10 years when we may see that campus open? Any kind of estimate that you can make on that?
I would tell you we're probably looking at 4 years.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I remember in this room when they were talking about blueprints for HLC,
Yeah.
and here we are. So things seem to happen pretty fast. So we're
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
I mean, even starting from today, if we had the architect, that process takes about a year. Then you go out with construction. And then from the awarding of that, it's about another 2.5 years
Sure.
at least.
Sure.
Yeah, so-
Okay. Thank you. One more comment. I just want to promote our educational instruction department here. I think South Austin would be a great place to promote teaching and get some more teachers into our world. That workforce needs more people as well. And we got a great
Absolutely.
team already doing that right now. So while I got some movers here, I want to promote our educational instruction department.
Yeah.
And as the department chair, I'd like to say whenever y'all want to meet about education instruction.
Hi, so I actually have a question that I'm asking on behalf of a friend of mine. She's a long-term employee here, but she wasn't able to be here. She had to go to I think she's doing teaching somewhere else. So I'm just going to read off her question that she wanted to ask. She said, ACC's employee health insurance coverage is with Health Select, and Health Select has a transgender exclusion in the policy. And so she wanted to know if ACC supports the LGBTQIA plus students and employees, why did they adopt an insurance plan that does not allow ACC employees to get transgender care covered by insurance?
Yeah. So, and I'll let Neil add on to it. We are under the state of Texas health insurance, and so it's not something we select. It is something that the state of Texas tells us we're in. But we also have the opportunity to express our concerns and any desires that we have in the change of those policies. So we can advocate to change it, but it is not, unlike some, like the University of Texas system, they have their own health insurance plan, and they go out, or the Texas A&M system. We do not have that luxury, and so we are a part of the statewide ERS, employee health insurance system. Any?
No, I mean, that's it right there.
Yeah.
I will just add, it's not a great option at all, and I've actually been working with HR benefits to at least prepare some information around this. All of us still have the option to go out and use the federal marketplace to get our own insurance. The problem with that is we get really good premium rates with the state of Texas plan, so you're talking about paying substantially more for that. So it's technically an option, but it just doesn't feel like a very good one. And so, but as Dr. Rhodes said, we'll continue as one institution in many that fall under ERS to kind of express, obviously our opinions and our preferences, but I think it's also, ACC as a community college has a really small voice in that, which is unfortunate. But that won't stop us from using it. It's just realistically, we should not be expecting that we'll be able to change ERS's positions on that, which is really the state of Texas's position on that.
Yes.
I'm
And there's 5 mil for that, but there's 4 areas listed on the slide. Is there any tea leaving on what looks like, how that breakout might look, and what that looks like in terms of, real facilities and services?
Yeah, and so what the process will be as we begin to roll this out is to have campus conversations that get down to the nitty-gritty of what actually has to happen. We had, at Eastview, we had a campus conversation not long ago, and same type of questions. I mean, it's okay, so this is the amount of money, so how do we move forward with it? So we move forward by inclusion in conversation. So that will take place because people who are here, the employees who are here, know what the issues are that need to be overcome, and so we need your voice.
Dr. Rhodes, let me just say it is time. Thank you both, Dr. Humphrey, Dr. Rhodes, for joining us. We have more time, so we're going to stick around and answer your questions and give you some more information. But if you will, join me in thanking them. And go do your hosting job well. Make us proud, and promise y'all we'll find out a lot more in just a few hours. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Midgley and Neil Vickers, who are going to give us a little bit more information on what we're referring to as the SIS, the Student Information System. And then we will continue taking any questions that you may have. Oh, and we've got Jason here too.
Yeah. So, and Jason, come on up also. So we have 3 of us here today. Jason Marshall, me, Mike Midgley, and Neil Vickers. And so what we thought we'd do is just a quick, really high-level overview of what the ERP process will be, the timeline, what we're trying to do, how we're structuring that, and then we can obviously take questions after that also. So I don't know which one of us wants to go first. So, yep, take off.
That sounded like an invite. Yeah. I don't know if this is. Hello. You just got to get this one close. So, Student Information System. I think one of the things I'd like to point out, so for those who don't know, we're talking about replacing Colleague, but it's important to point out that our student information systems, you really need to think of as more of an ecosystem, right? We actually have north of 100 applications that basically make up our student information, so systems, let's put plural on that. Colleague serves as kind of that primary database, and the issue is while we've done a lot of great things over the last 23 years that we've been on Colleague, it is the platform we are on is not a 21st century application. I'll later, if one of you wants to come, for those of you that love Colleague, we can talk later. But I think there's not a lot of love lost in Colleague. But one of the biggest pain points we have with it, and I think this is really important, is if we want to be and continue to be as great as we are, we have to use best of breed technologies. One of the challenges we have is we're going to continue to have lots of other solutions. We need to use Blackboards and all of the other things that we use. They do not play well with Colleague. We have very limited integrations between our student-facing systems and the ones that you use to deliver services to students, which a lot of times is not Colleague, it's another system, but it doesn't integrate well with Colleague. So this is just as much about getting us a better platform by which all the rest of our systems can work with and we can truly maximize them than it is just the core functionality of Colleague versus Workday. So I want to stress that because sometimes we get too hung up in just talking about Workday, but it's really much more than this. This will create a catalyst for us to really take a big leap forward, like a 2-decade leap forward in terms of how those systems all come together into a really cohesive ecosystem. And so the big push to change is more so actually about having a system that we can tie everything together as opposed to just, what is the exact, screen that we use in Workday versus how well we liked it in Colleague. Hopefully, there's some improvements there too, but it's really about getting us better positioned to be able to provide that really comprehensive set of systems. In terms of just timeline real quick, there's gonna be a whole lot more to come. We're literally like starting now. So I'm not gonna give you a lot of details to say, stay tuned. Sometime this month, we are planning to finalize our contract with the integrator, which actually turns out that it will also be Workday. Workday is the system, but we're also going to hire a division of Workday to actually serve as our consultants to help us implement this. We are hoping to finalize that contract sometime in the month of March and officially kind of kick off the project on or around April 1. Well, April 1's a Saturday, but so we'll say on and around. So still a lot of work to do this month. Once we do that, then we will be able to really start diving in, which includes sharing out information. So for now, it's still a lot of behind the scenes work. Once we have the integrator in place, we have agreed upon on what the scope of the project is and therefore the timelines. We will absolutely be coming out and having kind of communications and announcements. One of the things to start thinking about is there's absolute opportunities to participate in this project. That we will be forming all types of teams. At some point, we will need communication teams. We'll need people that are helping with training. We'll need people helping with testing. And so you might want to start thinking about whether you or someone you know would be interested in that. It'll be several months before we'll start kind of putting those calls out. But those are opportunities to come if you really want to be, part of this. This is definitely a little bit of the more the merrier on a system like this. We need as many kind of eyes on them as possible. So some opportunities there. I'll just jump in whenever you.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I think, Neil did a great job, first of all, of summing up the fact that this is not just about implementing one system. So when we talk about this SIS change, we're implementing Workday Student, which is relatively new. It's a relatively new product, but for ACC, that's a good thing. So we have the chance to get really in on the ground floor with something that is cutting edge. Workday is fully committed to the product. I actually sat down with them last week to talk about the future plans for this system. So we're going to be implementing that. But to Neil's point, this is also everything else around it. This is Blackboard integrating with Workday. This is every other system we use essentially in our ecosystem connecting with this platform. So we've already done kind of phase one, where we implemented Workday HCM and Workday Financials. So this sits on top of that and gives us the ability now to implement the student information system. And the overall program, the overall transformation is going to take us a while, but that Workday piece, that core piece of standing up Workday Student in itself is about a 30-month implementation. So this is a pretty significant effort. We'll be starting, like Neil said, around the beginning of April on that core piece, but we've already started doing a lot of work on the other pieces. And I think Mike might talk a little bit today about what that change management effort looks like, right? So making sure that everybody's involved. Touching a little bit on what Neil said, we actually want ACC as a whole to be involved in this process. And so that'll be training, that'll be communication, just understanding how we can get you all involved in helping us and how we can help you understand what's coming. A lot of work to be done. A lot of it is technology-based, but honestly, a lot of it is also just organizational change. So I'll let Mike talk a little bit about our plans around organizational change and reaching out and talking to everybody at ACC.
See, I haven't even started yet, and I'm getting my time warning. So. You know me? Yeah. So a couple of things just to reiterate, and we'll be doing more of this. We have 2 more campus conversations this spring, and we'll come and address those a little bit also. But I think the key point is that there's several major things that we're doing, and they've been alluded to or mentioned already. One thing to be aware, this is a 30-month project, and so while it seems at times like we should go into an absolute panic because it's here, it's going to be here for the next 2.5 years, longer, 30 months, once the clock starts running in April. So it's a long process. It involves a lot of effort, a lot of decisions, and a lot of testing also. And so I think to a couple of the high points to hit are, we have a couple of teams that are working, sort of on-the-ground teams that are helping organize and do a lot of the, we call it business process mapping. But what it really is what do we do now? How do we operate? What are the things we do in our offices day to day? And how do those interface with colleague right now? And so one of the things we'll be doing over the next few months, well into the summer, is trying to figure out for those 700, 800, depending on how you slice it up, processes, how will those look when we have to do those using Workday? What'll be different? And how do we let people know what's different? So that's a huge endeavor. So we will be calling on a lot of people to help us with that. So when we do, please do help, because it'll be really important that we get that right and we get it documented. That's one of the things that you can really go wrong on then if you don't get that right. Not only does nothing work, but no one knows how to make it work. So big part of what we're doing for months there. And so I think that's one of the big things to get out of this. Again, the timeline, understand that, you know, this will go on for a good while. And so we're kind of not in the middle of it. We're really at the beginning of it. And hopefully 30 months from now, we'll be saying, you know what, we have a modern system, things really are going smoother, we are able to do more, and we're able to interface with more modern technology than we were able to 30 months ago. So that's our hope. We will be bringing up a website. Brett and her team and I and some of our folks are meeting tomorrow to start talking about taking the website that we had for the first 2 installs and making that really all about the SIS with FAQs, timeline, how do I get involved? If you have comments, I think it's really important for you to be able to comment, and you know, and we did that. If you think back, we've done this before. We did it during COVID. People sent in questions, we sent back answers. We'll do the same thing here. So we'll be bringing that up. It'll probably be about mid-April when we really start sending out a lot of communications to folks and getting people sort of engaged with what we're doing. So, you know, we're at the beginning stages, but our hope is, ere this semester ends, we'll have some significant messaging in about mid-April on the whole project, and documentably so you can look at it and see what questions you have. And also, once again, think about, I would really like to be involved in that in some way. Let me suggest a way I might do that, you know. And I've had people do that already, and we've engaged with them, and they are involved now. So, you know, that's genuine. We'll be all different levels of that. I think that's probably, I mean, I could go on for a while, but because I've been immersed in this since I switched jobs a while back, which was really an interesting process. I don't know if you've ever engaged with Chancellor Rhodes when he wants you to do something really badly. I went home after talking to him the first time and told my wife, I said, you know, he wants me to do this crazy thing. And she said, you might as well just do it. You know, he never lets up. So, so here we are. So anyway, be a lot of fun, I guess, if you like this kind of fun, but a great project. And so hopefully we will engage as we go forward with all of this. And I'll stop now, and I guess if we have questions or whatever. Yeah.
Any questions?
Just from the QAP perspective, we have a couple of new platforms coming on board for co-curricular transcripts and for the micro-credentials, Brightspace, Leap, and Suitable. So please make sure you integrate those too.
Okay.
It's worth stressing that, again, you know, the HR finance, if you look at that, it's really about processes, it's about processing transactions, right? So workflow engines, and no doubt there's part of that in student, but so much more of this is really about data and integrations. Again, it's that recognition that we're going to have lots of other third-party, you know, softwares. How do we make sure that we have true end-to-end integrations, which, to be perfectly honest, we just really haven't had. You know, I don't know how many times I've been in a room, and it's like we really want a good report on what's going on in the learning labs, and it's like, well, then you need to go call the learning labs and ask them to run your report. We actually don't have kind of institutional insight into that. The plan is 30 plus months from now, between this and some other really important data projects that are going on, we will have an ecosystem where we can have that transparency. Selling this probably at this point, Jason, for you, but.
So I wanted to mention this, and of course I was about to forget it. So we also know that for the first 2 implementations, the HR particularly, and then the finance and administration, that we are looking at saying, okay, some time has gone by, so we talked about this. We're going to go back and do a little bit of a stabilization. Probably in the summer we'll begin that. Won't be immediately. And start looking at that and say, can we go back and look at the processes we did then and maybe make some improvements consciously as a part of this overall project. So we want to look at that also as well. So thanks.
We have time. We have time for one more question. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be SIS-related. You've got the expert for finance, facilities, bond. You've got, guy knows everything about instruction at ACC and IT. So any last question? Well,
Hello, everybody. My name's Fred Cortinas. I work in the trades, HVAC, in fact. We put a lot of emphasis on the school that's coming in, Southeast Travis County, the trades and all. So we have trades here working for the school. And our pay doesn't seem to meet the trades in the private sector. Are we going to get there?
So, lot to come. In fact, we were just chatting about this, the HR team and Kelly this morning. So this is a year, every 2 years we do, for staff, we do a market study. And this is really getting at the core of what, what you're getting to is where are we paying right now relative to our market? And for most of our staff, we use a local market, so it is really getting at. So what are the HVAC technicians making out there in the market right now? And we will be looking at that. And so that's a transparent process. We actually share at some point, all of that data is actually posted usually on our website. We have a committee that'll usually be made up primarily of Classified Association and ProfTech that we work with step by step through that process so that they can see it. And so this spring/summer is the year for us to do that study. So it will be very interesting because, as we all know, there's been a lot going on in the marketplace in the last couple of years. And so I usually feel like I have a pretty good idea as to what those studies will show us. This year, I'm as curious as anybody else as to what we will see in that data. So more to come on this. We'll be kicking that off in about a month or so. We'll see what's that? There'll be communications around this. We'll actually have, we'll be, announcing who the committee, we'll be putting out your associations would be putting out a call for participation. But there'll be announcements coming out. No doubt there'll be stuff in the HR newsletter. I suspect there'll be lots of stuff in the fact staff. We'll have a website that'll be stood up related to this. And then usually there's several board of trustee meetings, right, that are public meetings where we're presenting that to them as well. So you're happy to reach out to me or Kelly if you're just curious to see where we're at because you haven't heard anything. But it's usually a pretty kind of public process, that will, again, it'll take place over about a 3-month period. So let's say between sometime in March through the summer. Yeah, so we do it every 2 years. Yeah. Yeah. So just, I want to be clear on, we do not compare our employees to areas outside of Austin. I've been doing the market study directly for 12 years. And so it is a local market study. We will be pulling data from many sources around what all of the local employers are playing. And again, this will be transparent. We list what all those survey sources are, all the data that comes back from them. So just more to come. It sounds like you'll be in tune. In fact, it sounds like maybe you should be putting your name in the hat to be on the committee, but yeah, yeah. You're talking about when we did the full structure, we might have brought in a firm from who knows where to conduct it's different than the market study. We're conflating, and we'll get into it. Coming in and talking about our compensation structure, what are our titles, what's a director, that's different. We do not do that very often. Every 2 years, we go out and we test ourselves to the market, and that market is the Austin market. So we are comparing ourselves to AISD, to UT, to Dell, to Samsung, to as many sources that we can get to get the representation of how each one of you are currently being paid in Austin. That is what that process is. And so yep. So it sounds like you'll be staying in touch, and that's great.
And
yeah.
I want to thank
No.
you for that question, because what that says to me is we need to do some work with communicating and making sure that the process is crystal clear, and we've got a little bit of time to get that together and make that happen.
Yep,
So thank you very
absolutely.
much. I want to thank everyone on behalf of Dr. Rhodes and Dr. Humphrey for your attendance today. It was a full house. It was fantastic. There will be 2 more campus conversations coming up, and some of what we heard here, we're going to carry forward. And please, if you don't already, pay attention to the Fact Staff Digest, because we want your ideas of stories in there, and we try to do a deep dive to make sure that you're staying connected with some of the news nuggets that matter most to us as employees. So with that, thank you. I want to thank these guys for coming in and talking to us about SIS. They're going to stick around for a minute, so if you want to follow up and have another conversation, feel welcome. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you.